Hello there, and welcome along to Classeek 15. It's time for our coffee break conversation podcast with me, Jack Pepper. I'm a composer and a radio presenter, and here I sit down with both stars and behind-the-scenes figures in the classical music world, hoping to give young and emerging classical musicians some top tips on how to break into the profession. Today, we're meeting Stephen McHolm. He's the director of the Verbier Festival Academy and of Unlimited, based in Switzerland. He's been there since 2016, and before that he was the artistic director of the Honans International Piano Competition Foundation in Calgary. He grew that into one of Canada's most respected and widest-reaching international classical organisations. Well, when we spoke on a video call, we started with his current job, and Stephen began by describing the Verbier Festival Academy in a nutshell.
Well, in a nutshell, the Verbier Festival Academy is sort of the paradise for a young artist every summer who wants to learn from the best. It is a place where young musicians come to learn from great masters, but more than that, I think to be surrounded by great artists and by great performances is so important. And they learn from just being part of an artistic community. For an academy only to offer master classes is not enough. It really needs to be a real transmission from one generation to the next, but also an opportunity to get outside of daily life and experience music. And there's no better place than in the Swiss Alps, and to get away from everything and be really submerged in great music.
So what does it look like practically on a sort of day-to-day, week-by-week basis? What would a young musician taking part in the academy face?
So maybe I'll start by saying that the Academy is made up of soloists, singers, chamber ensembles, and we now have an audio recording program as well, so young recording engineers, and then also young artists who are looking to break outside the box of classical music as well, so thinking of new ways of how to present classical music and present themselves as young artists. But a typical day for many of the soloists and the ensembles and the singers would be bright and early. They start with either rehearsal or master classes. So each day from 9:30 to 12:30, there are master classes for piano, violin, viola, cello, string quartet, or a preformed ensemble, song or opera. And then there's a break at lunch where we all get together, all 60-some Academy musicians and recording engineers, for daily announcements and just sort of to get to know each other and cross-contaminate on ideas. In the afternoon, they'll have another masterclass, probably chamber music or, again, song or opera, or a myriad of workshops on what it takes to be a 21st century musician. So it could be a workshop on writing a biography, or how to speak to the media, or how to program a fundraising concert, or team building, or performance psychology, all sorts of things that help them think outside the box as musicians. If the musicians are coming to us and in a practice room all day, then we've failed, because what we want them to feel is after 3 weeks of being with us, they should be exhausted, but they should also be inspired to take things on. They may also, during an afternoon, either be giving a concert in the Verbier Cinema for a spotlight concert where young musicians are performing for the public for free, or we have a number of sort of final concerts, which means that it could be a lead recital or a song and chamber music recital where the singers collaborate with our soloists and our chamber musicians in the Verbier Church. And that's one of our main stage concerts. It's an opportunity for these musicians to be heard by a wider public. And by the end of the festival, all of them will have performed at least one of those concerts in the church, or for the singers, an opera on the main stage at Salle des Combats, our big concert hall, with our junior orchestra, because not only is there an academy, but there are 2 training orchestras as part of the Verbier Festival. So again, they get to know each other. There's 225 young people running around Verbier for the month of July. And it makes the atmosphere in Verbier, I think, unlike any other major classical music festival, where, yes, there are great artists and distinguished people with distinguished musical careers. And there are also people who are aiming to build those careers, who are a lot of fun, who make music on the streets, who try out new opportunities. And if you make it through the day into the evening after your classes in the afternoon, you'll attend a concert on the main stage at the main stage of Salle des Combins, whether it's orchestral or a recital or an opera, or at the Verbier Church. So there are 2 concerts each evening. And then late night, they'll be either attend our Unlimited projects. Unlimited is the creative laboratory of the festival, where a lot of new music, contemporary music, and contemporary ideas are celebrated. And there's a late night cabaret that often our musicians take part in special projects or cabaret programming as well.
So how do you find these young musicians? Is this a sort of a year-long search for you personally, Stephen? How do you find them? Do you go to them? Do they come to you? Mixture of the two?
It's a mix of it all. We're really part of a community of performing arts, a community of music. And so it's so important that I keep in contact with my colleagues in other cultural organizations, especially young competitions for young musicians, young artist trusts like the Young Concert Artists Trust in London, or YCA in New York, or the Concert Artists Guild. These are all important partners with an academy. And of course, the members of the World Federation of International Music Competitions are valuable contacts for us as well, because they are sort of our ears in the world. So they know who's up and coming, and we're often in touch with them. But of course, agents and managers, it's a real community of talent scouts. So yes, we're always looking for advice and information from our colleagues who we trust. But also we put an open call out every year, every fall, to musicians around the world. Last year, combined with our 2 orchestra programs, we had more than 2,500 applicants for 225 positions in the 3 programs: the Academy, the Verbier Festival Orchestra, or the Verbier Festival Junior Orchestra. It's very competitive. So there is an application process which is online with video auditions and requirements that we ask of the musicians. We also ask for the Academy that the musicians present themselves on video, who they are as musicians, what gets them going, why should we care who they are as a young musician? Because what they need to prove to us is that they have the chops, but there's so many of them that are so great now. What gives them that extra special edge? What makes them unique? And we say this over and over again to young musicians. You have to shine. You have 10 seconds to make an impression, or maybe less, to make a great impression. And especially in this competitive environment where we have 150, this year we have 200 singers who have applied to our Atelier Lyrique, and we choose around 13. So what makes you special? Because there are so many who are very good, but it's what makes them the best.
And is that, in that, say, first 10-second impression, for you, is it often repertoire-based? Is it charisma? Is it personality? Can you pin down what it is that helps make a really good first impression?
It's all of those things. I would say, first and foremost, it depends on what you're listening to. If you're listening to a singer, it's much easier very quickly to know the quality of the voice than it is if you're listening to a pianist or an instrumentalist, where you know the parts and what they're playing that's going to trip them up, and you need to hear the arch of something. But of course, with a singer, you need to hear the arch as well of what they're singing. But it depends on what we're listening to, of course. But yes, the charisma has a lot to do with it. It's very difficult to evaluate on video in that way, because a video you can hide. If you have a great acoustic on a video for an audition, it makes it so that we can't always see or hear what we need to hear. So that's why it's important that we have enough repertoire, enough things that we're asking of the musicians, that we get those answers. But certainly, yes, charisma goes a long way, but it's first and foremost the talent. And I want to make that clear. But to have the edge, you need to be an interesting programmer. Like we asked them, what if you were given a 60-minute program with no intermission, what would you program for us? And if it's just your party pieces, okay, it's great. I'd love to hear you sometime. But does that really make you a great artist? Or do we see something that's shimmering in the background, that they're simmering to the top, that could make us want to hear you more and more and again and again.
And are you looking for the finished product, or are you looking for potential? Is there a point where you look and you think, okay, there's raw talent here, we could nurture this? Because you say masterclasses are such a key part of the festival as well as the performances. How important is potential versus the sort of the finished product with a bow on top?
Well, I'd say, because the age range of our musicians, for the instrumentalists, it's 16 to 26. So they're all at an age that is still potential. Some people would say the younger you are, the, more potential that you'll have. But it's often, there are times that there are musicians who are in their early to mid 20s who just haven't been given the opportunity that they need. And this is an opportunity for them to be heard. Maybe they are closer to a finished product. But I think anybody who's still 25, 26, you continue to learn as a musician. If you're not learning as a musician, and if you say you know it all already, that actually is a real turnoff for us. If you think you know it all already, forget it. Then why would you come? But to have some humility, to know that you have something to learn. Of course, when we see a young musician with a lot of promise, that's very exciting, that there's great potential. But we also have to balance that between those who need to be heard and deserve to be heard. So there's a little bit of both.
So what is the best immediate next step then for a young musician listening, thinking, well, how do I sort of make this a reality? The best thing they can do in the next, few weeks, few months. What's your top tip for an immediate next step? Well,
I think what's really important is for young musicians to be open to new perspectives. So the fact is, young musicians will have teachers who are valued mentors and important in their lives, and they should listen to their teachers. But there's a point at which time, and that's why master classes are so important, is to get a new perspective. And if you're going to go into a master class, you have to open your mind. You don't forget what your teacher said, but you have to go in with an open mind and say, there's another way of thinking of this, and give it a try. Don't be rigid. That's, I think, a great piece of advice is, if you can be open, you will get further. You don't have to listen. You can take it. You take it or leave it. But while you're in that class, try to respond, try to have an exchange with the person who's there, because it's important to get new perspectives. The other thing I'm always amazed at when I visit conservatories or music schools is they may have fantastic people coming in to give master classes. And master classes are an old way of learning, but they're still a valuable way of learning. And so much of this business is getting to know other people in the business. And that includes other musicians, even musicians who are playing the same instrument as you, who may have a career further down the road. And you think, well, they'll never be able to help me. The more you play for people, the more you play for people who are connected, the better you're going to do, because everybody talks. So when I go to music schools and I see that the room is empty for a master class, I think, oh, okay, you're wasting your tuition. So show up, go listen to concerts. There's easy ways for you to become a better musician. Go listen to a concert, go see what's out there, go backstage, meet the musicians, be seen, get to know people. And it doesn't come naturally for so many young musicians. I get it. It doesn't come naturally to me to be gregarious and out there and shake everybody's hand, but I know it's important. So as a young musician, find those opportunities where you can go backstage to meet a musician. It's interesting when artists who have been at the Academy ask me, well, how can I come back? I would really love to perform at the Verbier Festival. And now, if you're invited to the Academy, it's like winning a lottery or like winning a big competition. And then to be invited back is really an accomplishment in itself. So, but one tip on that is look at who's performing at festivals that you want to perform at. How can you perform chamber music with them? How can you get to know them? How can you get them to say, hey, there's a young musician I've heard and I'd like to play with them? Those are the people that you need. And it's the same thing with finding management or an agent. Look at who's on a roster, and if there's a musician that you've performed with before, or you admire, or you'd like to perform with, and you think it's a possibility, make it happen. Try to make it happen, because those are the people who will be your champions. They go back to their manager or agent, and they say, I think you should try this person, or or they speak to a conductor and say, hey, this young artist could be a young artist to watch out for. So it's a bit of playing the game, but if you're going to play in the game, you might as well step up to bat.
Well, if ever there is a place that represents that kind of coming together, you speak of masterclasses and exchanges, it's definitely the Verbier Festival, having been there myself. Stephen McHolm, thank you for taking us inside it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And thank you for joining us. All the episodes in the Classeek 15 series can be heard on the usual podcast platforms and online at classeek.com. There you can also see the very latest opportunities and video on demand. And if you want up-to-the-minute updates, follow Classeek on social media at Classeek Music. Thanks so much for joining me, Jack Pepper, and hopefully I will see you for another Classeek 15 before long.